Hello, my name is Weston Sheely, and this is my final project presentation for the set cover problem. The goal of this project was to use the skills that we've developed by solving TSP problems throughout the semester and apply them to a new problem of our choice using a genetic algorithm and wisdom of crowds. The problem I chose is called the set cover problem. So what is the set cover problem? The set cover problem is one of the problems from the wiki page of NP Complete Problems. In this problem, you are given a set called U. You are also given several subsets of U, and then the goal is to use as few subsets as possible to completely cover U. Repeats are allowed, and the numbers do not have to appear in the same order they appear in U. So let's look at a very simple example of the set cover problem. On the left here, you can see that we have our set U, which consists of the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We also have three subsets, B1, B2, and B3, which consist of subsets of what is contained in U. And as I said before, to solve this, we need to pick the smallest number of sets possible to cover all the numbers that are present in U. And as we can see on the right, the correct answer here is B1 and B3, which cover 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 between them. And as I said before, they do not have to be in order. This example, they are in order, in the same order they appear in U. They do not have to be. They can be scrambled. And there can be repeats in your subsets. Not in the same subset, but you can have 3 in both B1. If there was a 3 in B1, this would also be a valid solution. Note, in more complex implementation of this problem, U will be much longer and there will be many more subsets to choose from, and it will be not this easy to solve. All right, let's talk about how the test data was generated for this project. The test data for the project, which is U and its subsets, were generated at the start of the program in the generator function. This function accepts inputs for U length, for which I chose 150, and number of subsets, for which I chose 450, and a range from which the length of each subset is randomly chosen. I chose between 3 and 10, so the subsets can vary in length between 3 and 10. One of the most important things I had to consider when choosing these parameters was I had to make sure that the problem was complex enough. If the subsets were half as long as U, then there wouldn't be much need for a genetic algorithm to solve the problem. So to ensure that my version of the set cover problem was complex enough to warrant a genetic algorithm, I made sure the subsets were much smaller in length than U. The process for creating the data is as follows. First, I created U. This was relatively easy. I just created a list of numbers 0 through 149. The harder part was creating the subsets. I started by determining a random length between 3 and 10 for each subset. Then I filled each slot in that subset with a randomly chosen value from U, ensuring no repeats, of course. Once all subsets were full, I did a check to ensure that every number from U exists in at least one subset, to ensure that a solution is always possible. If a number was not found, then I chose a random position within a random subset to replace with the needed number. This check is repeated until all numbers are found and a solution is possible. The function then returns u and its subsets. It is important to note that I used the seed 1, 2, 3 for all random processes within the generator function to ensure consistent data. Let's talk about how the algorithm works. The main structure of the algorithm is very similar to my implementation of the GA for the TSP. The main function, which is setCoverGA, starts by creating an initial population of chromosomes. These chromosomes contain the result of continuously adding subsets to a list of subsets until that list contains a valid solution for the set cover problem. This initial setup of the population, the function cycles through generations, continuously sending the population through the crossover, mutation, and wisdom of crowds functions, while recording the best solution from each generation. First, I will discuss the crossover function. The implementation of this function is incredibly simple compared to the same function from the TSP problem, at least in my implementations of it. Since the order of the genes within each chromosome is irrelevant for the set cover problem, there's no need to preserve that order. So, for my implementation of this function, I simply chose 2 parent chromosomes from the top few performing of each generation and randomly combined their genes by sending them through a function called makeComplete that continuously adds subsets from the 2 parents until a valid solution is formed. And of course, this process is repeated until there is a full population. Next, I will discuss the mutation function. My mutation function is also pretty simple. I cycle over every subset in every chromosome and give each gene a random chance to mutate, genes here being the subsets. When mutation occurs, the subset is replaced by a randomly chosen subset from the list of all subsets. After this, to avoid an incomplete solution, the chromosome is sent through the makeComplete function to ensure it is still a valid solution. If it is not, then more subsets will be tacked on to the end until it is a complete solution again. Finally, I will discuss the wisdom of crowds function. It is important to note that this function only runs every 10 generations. The wisdom of crowds function simply takes the top few most occurring genes from the elite chromosomes and arranges them into a new chromosome. This chromosome is sent through the makeComplete function to ensure it is a valid solution. And this chromosome is then injected into the population. All right, so let's talk about the first experiment that I ran, which is varying population size and mutation rate. So over the next 3 slides, you will see different graphs. These graphs that you see range from population 50 to 100 to 200. All the ones on this slide are mutation rate 0.01. All the ones on the next slide will be 0.04, and the next will be 0.07, just for context. So I will read the description now. In these graphs, we can see the result of varying the population size between 50, 100, and 200 with a mutation rate of 0.01. The improvement curves in all 3 graphs are extremely similar. This shows that a large population size is probably unnecessary, at least for this mutation rate, because there's not much gained for increasing it, and it makes the program slower. Here we have our next set of graphs. In these graphs, we can see the result of varying the population size between 50, 100, and 200 with a mutation rate of 0.04. In these graphs, we can see an interesting effect. With a higher mutation rate, we can see that the graph with population 50 is less stable. It doesn't even out quite as well. But as you increase the population size, the instability is decreased as the population increases. This suggests that raising population stabilizes a higher rate of mutation. Another notable feature is that the improvement occurs in slightly fewer generations than those with mutation rate 0.01 for the graphs with higher populations. So in that one over to the right with population 200, we can see a much, not much, but a steeper drop improvement curve than the ones we saw in the previous slide. Our last set of graphs for this experiment. These graphs show the results of varying the population size between 50, 100, and 200 with a mutation rate of 0.07. In these graphs, we can see the same effect discussed for the last set of graphs. Increasing the mutation rate creates instability, but increasing the population size helps to stabilize the improvement curve. Although these graphs don't reach as optimal of results as some of the earlier graphs, I suspect we would see improvements if we were to test this mutation rate on an even larger population than our largest population of 200 here. Experiment number 2, testing with and without using the wisdom of crowds function. Above we can see the graphs comparing results with and without using the wisdom of crowds function. As you can see, these are very similar improvement curves. The one with wisdom of crowds may have performed slightly better, but I think it is safe to say that the wisdom of crowds function does not effectively fulfill its purpose in bringing wisdom to the population. This is a result I sort of expected. The wisdom of crowds function I implemented only strings together the most occurring subsets out of the elite population into one chromosome. For an effective wisdom of crowds function, it would likely involve determining which subsets complement each other the best without a lot of overlap, and this was something I did not feel capable of implementing without external help, so I did not do so. Finally, we have experiment 3, varying the problem size. In experiment 3, I did something a bit different. Instead of changing the parameters used to solve the problem, I changed the size of the problem itself. It is important to note that as U changes, so does the number of subsets. I set the number of subsets to be equal to the length of U times 3, just for reference. So in these graphs, we can see the 3 improvement curves resulting from using sizes 50, 150, and 300 for the length of U. These improvement curves look very similar not only in shape but in scale, which is not what I expected from changing the size of the problem. You wouldn't expect that they'd reach the same relative range of optimal solution. But like earlier graphs, we have seen these graphs achieve a value of around 40 as the minimum number of subsets they can reach to reach a valid solution. But since the sizes of the subsets are the same, how come more of them aren't required to cover a larger U? My suspected reason for this is as U increases, so does the number of subsets, which means there are more options to choose from, leading to less overlap between the subsets that you choose for your solution. I've seen throughout my experiments that there is a lot of overlap between the subsets. This likely decreases that significantly by providing more options. Thank you. This is the end of my presentation.